Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Bernard Cornwell, The Winter King. This is book 1 in his Warlord Chronicles, which is a trilogy about King Arthur. Book number 2 is over here, The Enemy of God, and book number 3 is Excalibur, and we will be reviewing those in depth too. This is going to be an in-depth review of this book. I did a generalized review of the whole trilogy about 2 years ago on my channel. You can check that out under it's just the Warlord Chronicles review, Brian Lee Durfee, if you want to look at that. Now, let's talk about, we're going to start with the cover, and then we're going to work our way into the depths of this novel. So the cover is dope. I like the simple graphic design with the bold lettering. The cover was done by a fellow named Bill Gregory. Now, if you put the trilogy together, like book number 2, the cover doesn't match really at all, nor does the spine. Book number 3 is a completely different design altogether. Same with the spine. So together, the 3 books look a little... They don't look like they belong together too much on the shelf. You got just bright silver, bright yellow, dark green, none of the type. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm not going to complain too much about that. I'd rather they all match or none of them match. I hate it when like 2 of the 3 match and then the third one doesn't belong there. But anyway, these are signed books. You know I always show off my signed books. I have met Bernard Cornwell. He has signed his books to me. If I can find the page he signed it, yes. There we go. And there's a great character list at the front of the book. We need to know the characters and place names. It's wonderful to have because these are... everything is named very ancient Welsh and English names. And, you know, like... London is not called London. Glastonbury Tor is not called Glastonbury Tor. It's called Ynys Wydran and things like that. So we want to know the the ancient name and what its corresponding modern city may be. And then we've also got this great map here to help us with the navigation also. So, King Arthur. This book is the story, the whole trilogy is told from the point of view of a young squire named Durfee. I think that they should have named him Durfee. That's just me. But he is Durfee or Dervil. I related to him because our names were so close, so I just pictured myself as Durfee throughout the story. The story is told from Durfee's point of view, much the same way as Robin Hobb's Assassin Apprentice is told from the young assassin's point of view, much the same way that Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind is told from a narrator's point, from Kvoth's point of view as he narrates the story. Durfee is our eyes and ears for the entire trilogy. And Durfee is just a cool badass squire. Love everything about Durfee. I love the character. I'm glad that we got the story of King Arthur and Lancelot and Guinevere and Uther and Morgaine and Morgause and Mordred and all of the people, Galahad, Bors, everybody that's in the King Arthur legends is in these books in one way or another. And Bernard Cornwell does a great job of twisting these characters into people that you do not recognize from what you think King Arthur stories might be. So it starts in 420 AD, narrated by Durfee. And as Durfee is telling the story to young Igraine, she is like, I want to know about King Arthur. You were there when all of the legends took place. Please tell me. And he's like, well, I will not only tell you, but I will have you write it down as I tell you, so this can be here for generations. This story can go on for generations after, and that's how the story starts. We start with the birth of Mordred, the son of Mordred. Now, Mordred was King Arthur's brother. Uther gave birth to 2 boys, Mordred and the bastard Arthur. Mordred was his favorite son. Arthur he did not like at all. Mordred and Arthur were in a big battle, and Mordred perished in the battle. And this, I'm not going to give away spoilers here. Everything that I'm talking about is just going to be within the first 50 pages. So this is the setup to the story. So older Mordred dies. That's Arthur's brother. He dies. King Uther actually thinks that it's Arthur's fault that his beloved son Mordred passed away. So he banishes Arthur. You're out. Mordred's son, though, is born. Mordred got Norwina pregnant before he went off to battle. His son is born. And we start the story at that birth. And it's very important because the young baby Mordred is born a cripple. And it is thought that he was born a cripple because people that were not supposed to be involved in the birth were involved in the birth, one of whom is Durfee. Another one is Morgan, Arthur's sister, and Arthur's bastard sister, who has a deformed face and has to wear a gold mask. She is there, and so is a girl named Nimue, who is sort of a witch in the care of Merlin. And so anyway, the whole thing, everybody's superstitious. Everybody in the book is afraid of witchcraft. Everybody's superstitious. Nobody trusts anybody. So there's problems from the get-go just with the birth of this crippled baby. And then we learn that the baby is taken. For whatever reason, the baby is taken. Uther says, I'm not raising the baby, I am sending the baby off with Durfee, Morgan with the gold mask, and Nimue to live in Merlin's castle in Yennis Midron, which is actually Glastonbury Tor, or in other words, Avalon. Okay. Gosh, I hope that set it up. So now we've got the young baby, Mordred, the future king, living and being raised with Merlin and this array of witches and weird freaks in Avalon. And Arthur and King Uther is just like, King Uther isn't with it. He's a little old and dotard, and he's a little bit of an older. Anyway, his protector, his bodyguard, is a big brute of a knight named Owain. And Owain is cool. But anyway, where's Arthur throughout all this? Arthur doesn't show up until about 100 pages into the book. Where is he throughout all this anyway? Well, like I said, he was banished by his father, and everybody knows that Arthur had no part in his brother's death in the battle. Arthur's just a better fighter and a better war leader and everything. Uther doesn't like him because he's the bastard, and Mordred was the real heir. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, Merlin and Avalon. Merlin comes off as a little bit of a lech. He's a little bit of weird. He's gathered this menagerie of freaks and dwarves and witches and orphans and which Durfee is one of, and they all live in Avalon. It's a great, 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 great little community of interesting characters. And then just brutality happens to them. Just a little ways into the book, there's a shockingly brutal twist in the whole series turns upside down, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And then you're really invested in it because Arthur shows up at this point during this brutal twist, and he shows up in all of his glory. Now, we don't get to see Arthur as a young boy in this story. He's already about a 25-year-old man when he makes his entrance into the story. So any thing about Excalibur being pulled from the stone, any of those things, those have already happened, and we find out through Durfee's later in the trilogy, we kind of get flashbacks of those scenes, but not in this book. Yes, and then Arthur just is a good guy. He's just a good guy, and he stands up for the right, and he falls in love with Guinevere. He's supposed to marry a very, very beautiful young princess named Senwyn, and he meets her, but at the same time he meets Guinevere, and she is just taken with Guinevere. And then Durfee gets sent to a place called Yennis Trebus. I liked all the scenes in Ynys Trebus because Ynys Trebus is actually Mont Saint-Michel in France. If you know what Mont Saint-Michel is, Google it. It is one of the coolest fortresses in the world. It's that fortress in France that sits out in the ocean up on a big rock where the ocean tides come in and out. Like, you can walk to it across the sand at low tide, but during high tide, you don't want to be anywhere near the ocean because it'll sweep you out. Anyway, there's a bunch, and I have been to Mont Saint-Michel, so I also know what it's like. So a big portion of the book takes place in Mont Saint-Michel, lots of battles, and I've always wanted to, when I first read these 20 some odd years ago, I'd never been to Mont Saint-Michel, so I didn't realize what a spectacular place it was. But now that I've been there and I find it in this book again, it adds so much to this book. We meet in Mont Saint-Michel King Ban, who is the king of Mont Saint-Michel, and his sons Galahad and Lancelot. Now, one of his sons is absolutely a great dude. The other one is a douchebag bastard from the get-go. And I love the way that Bernard Cornwell has this character that is so integral to the King Arthur story. And I won't tell you whether it's Galahad or Lancelot, but this character is such a creep. One of the creepiest, most unlikable characters in the history of fiction. And as I was reading the dialogue between that character and Durfee, and that character and everybody else that character talked to, I was just like, God, this guy is fucking douchebag. This guy has every characteristic that you would hate in a person. This guy personifies it. And he gets away with it because both Galahad and Lancelot are absolutely good-looking dudes, where one of them is noble, the other one is not noble, and it is just, there is a savage cruelty to the whole relationship between the two, and it is absolutely one of the great highlights of the book. Now, it doesn't happen, now the Mont Saint-Michel stuff doesn't happen until about halfway through, and the Lancelot, Galahad, Durfee, Arthur, Guinevere interactions don't happen until about halfway through. But once you get there, you are riveted, because these characters play off of each other. And Bernard Cornwell writes the dialogue so on point, where it's just, the insults are cutting, the comebacks are grand and great, and people make stands, and people face off against each other, and they make truces, and then they betray each other. It is so wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I wanted to read, just before I give you my final review, my final score on this, I'm going to read a few pages just to show you what King Arthur's life, this is kind of what King Arthur believes about. And King Arthur is genuinely, in this book, genuinely a good person who genuinely wants England to be a free and fair, capitalistic society where everybody gets a chance to succeed. I mean, he really, really wants that for his people. I mean, and it's never happened under his father's reign, and everybody else that is challenging to the throne of young, crippled Mordred. Because let's keep in mind, King Arthur isn't King Arthur yet. He is now in charge of keeping the young king Mordred, the crippled one, safe. But so this is, I will read this and then we will shut down the review. What do you think a soldier's job is, Durfee? Arthur asked me in that intimate manner that made you feel he was more interested in your answer than in anything else in the world. To fight battles, Lord, Durfee said. Well, he said, I said. So Durfee's answer is a soldier's job is to fight battles. And Arthur shook his head. No, to fight battles, Durfee? No. Arthur goes on to say, oh yeah, it's not to fight battles, Durfee, he corrected me, on behalf of people who can't fight for themselves. I learned that in Brittany. You only fight a battle if people can't fight it themselves. That's what he was saying. This miserable world is full of weak people, powerless people, hungry people, and sad people, sick people, poor people, and it's the easiest thing in the world to despise them, especially if you're a soldier. If you're a warrior and you want a man's daughter, you just take her. You want his hand, you just kill him. After all, you're a soldier and you have a spear and a sword, and he's just a poor weak man with a broken plow and a sick ox. And what's to stop you from killing him and taking his daughter? But the truth is, Durfee, we are only soldiers because that weak man makes us soldiers. He grows the grain that feeds us, he tans the leather that protects us, and he pulls the ash trees that make our spear shafts. We owe him our service. That is why we are soldiers. We have a chance, Arthur leaned in on the high rampart and spoke, to make this place in which we can serve our people. We can't give them happiness, and I don't know how to guarantee a good harvest that will make them rich, but I do know that we can make them safe. And a safe man, a man who knows that his children will grow without being taken for slaves, and his daughter's bride price won't be ruined by a soldier's rape, is a man more likely to be a happy man, not living under the threat of war. And that is fairness. And that is our job. That is King Arthur's motto. We fight for our people because our people supply us with all the good things in life, and they're going to stop supplying us with the good things in life if we don't keep them safe. Because we're the soldiers. We're the tough men with the battle armor and the big horses and all the weaponry, and we have got to protect these people from all the evils in the world. And that is his motto throughout the entire trilogy. Just great. And then he is beset by all the knights that he gathers together with him. And the thing is he gives everybody a second chance. Even though there are some evil knights in his round table, he is such a good person. He sees the good in them at all the time. And that to his detriment a lot. But he sees the good in them because he knows, he just wants everybody to think and be like him. And he thinks he can change them, right? And it's just a great, great story. I loved this story. This is a smoking hot, on fire, 10 out of 10 book. And I can't wait to read the next two, reread them. I read them about 20 years ago. Anyway, Winter King, super good, super dope, 10 out of 10.